Hello and welcome to the Supreme Leadership Summit. I am so excited to be here. I have our first expert, Stephanie Woodward, and she is, let me get this straight. She is an amazing, first of all, she's an author and a whole life coach. So I'll give you just a snippet. She's a leadership and whole life coach, facilitator, and author of #1 Amazon bestseller, The Big Scale Back: Success and Balance by Your Own Design. She is the founder of Agency to Change, a boutique coaching and consulting firm specializing in custom programs, experiences, and retreats for individuals, groups, teams, and organizations. She guides clients to identify and maintain their sweet spot of successful outcomes, personal fulfillment, and positive well-being. That is incredible. Congratulations.
Thank you, Rachel. I'm thrilled to be here. I can't wait for this conversation.
Amazing. So right off the bat, tell us about you and what brings you to this work.
Oh, such a great question, a loaded one for me because a lot brought me to this place today. So I did not start out as a coach. Funnily enough, when I was a kid, I thought I was going to either be a vet taking care of animals. Then I thought I was going to be a news anchor. Then I thought I was going to be maybe a pediatrician. I went through so many different career options as a kid. And what ended up really captivating my heart as I went through different studies was psychology. And I started noticing, wow, what goes on in our heads and how we relate with one another. I just couldn't get enough of it. I read everything I could on the topic. I started studying as much as I could on the topic. A lot of my career was actually in communications. So helping people in interpersonal communication, communicating within organizations, people working through a lot of change and how to talk through that. And then that led me, after being in-house in a lot of different organizations, I started to notice leadership, and that's our theme for today, supreme leadership. Yes. Leadership can look very different depending on how people pay attention to people, #1, and how people pay attention to psychology and that interaction. So that got me really fascinated with leadership and how that presents in organizations. So now I work with a lot of individuals and teams, like you said in that bio. Thank you so much for that intro. Doing this work and looking at leadership and what that means to each of us, whether it's leading ourselves in life, whether it is leading people within an organization, whether it's leading within our own families, whether it's leading within our communities. There's so many different ways to lead and how we can get really intentional and conscious about that.
Amazing. Now you have a very interesting story in terms of, how, as you said, you alluded to, there's a lot that brought you here. And the main thing, and this is like a through line and part of what this whole summit is all about, focusing on, the impact of like clarity, courage, and confidence in our stories, in our transformation journeys, and for you, like in a nutshell, you did all the right things, right? You checked off all the boxes, and then what happened? What happened?
I love the way you asked that question. So I think of this, and I talk about this actually in my book, but I'm going to talk about it here as well, give everyone a bit of a spoiler. Unconscious productivity versus conscious productivity.
You mean this book?
You have a copy in front of you. Oh, yeah, that little thing there in front of you. I talk about this idea of unconscious productivity to conscious. And when you say I was checking all the boxes, that was exactly it. And when we're in unconscious productivity, those boxes are created perhaps by other people. Maybe those boxes and those items that we're supposed to be checking off, maybe they were written by our parents. Maybe they were written by our teachers, our friends, well-meaning, loving people. Maybe they were set by society. But I think here the important thread, and what I love to have conversations about, is who the heck wrote that list for us? Who put those boxes there? And
who are they?
Exactly. Like, are those boxes the ones I really wanted there? And so anytime I have found myself without clarity, without courage, without confidence. It's been at the times when I'm trying to tick a bunch of boxes that I didn't write myself. I'm ticking them and I'm not even aware that they weren't the boxes I want to tick myself. And so suddenly I would find myself comparing, well, someone else has checked off those boxes a lot faster. Someone else has an even longer list of boxes and they seem to be doing pretty well. Oh, they're this age and they've already done that.
The top 30 under
Yeah, and
30.
it becomes a comparison and validation game. And talk about sapping courage and confidence when you're kind of looking at this and thinking, I don't even know if I relate to this and I don't know why I don't. So contrast that. So if we can start to imagine it, clarity, courage, and confidence, if that list has been generated by you tuning inwards, going to your own inner compass, checking in with what's true for you.
Yes.
And suddenly, because I'm all about lists, I'm all about ambition, I'm all about big dreams. I have a feeling a lot of the listeners today are all about that as well. I'm never going to not have a list.
Yes.
I'm never not. So this isn't about, hey, everyone, get rid of the list. This is about getting really conscious. What's on that list? Why is it on that list? And listening to your own inner compass before you take in noise from anyone else. So I'll pause there.
Yeah, it's, I love everything you're sharing. And what I'm hearing from that is this question that has really just changed the trajectory of my life and the way I see things, and even have conversations with clients, like as a supreme guide and courage mentor myself. This is something that in its simplicity, it's the question, what do you want?
Yeah.
Right? What do you want? Not what do you think others expect of you? Not, and having all of those, things around them, but what do you want at the heart of it? What brings you joy? What supports you as you do your clients in reaching or creating that balance, whatever balance looks like for you, because balance for Stephanie may look different, from balance for Rachel, and that is great. It's supposed to be, right? This is about, achieving and creating success and joy on our terms in a way that honors our lives. And so, what has your experience been with that?
Oh, absolutely. If we were flip charting and we had, and I could put a highlighter and underline, I would be circling what you just said right there. And especially the piece around like, hey, we need to create this for ourselves.
Yes.
And so I would ask similar questions. So when you talked about like, hey, what do you really want? When you ask your clients that, you might have had the same experience. I'll ask some version of that question and there'll be a twinkle, there'll be a glimmer in their eye. Suddenly they've got permission to say that thing.
Permission.
And then almost immediately, whether it happens in the call or they're all fired up in the call, all excited, the twinkle's there, they hang up the call, get off the Zoom, leave the meeting room. And all of a sudden, fear and doubt and a bunch of limiting beliefs and a bunch of all those voices, because this list of things, this unconscious productivity, these things that we think are expected of us, and you used a great word there, that expectation piece, it's hard to erase that conditioning. So I think, don't worry, this would be my thing. And I say it to my clients all the time. If you ask yourself that question, what do I really want? And you feel this surge of, I actually do know, like, I know what that whisper is telling me, but then all of a sudden you're flooded and inundated with doubt, fear, perfectly normal. Yes. I often joke and say, if the fear and doubt is showing up, it probably means you're up to something good. You've probably landed. You've probably landed on the thing you need to be following. And so it doesn't mean, as you start to do this work, as you start to tune into your inner compass, I don't think either you or I is saying to anyone, you need to make a decision about this tonight and change your world over. But follow the thread. Let your heart and your inner compass start to guide you. So you're getting, it's like you're collecting clues. All these little clues.
The scavenger hunt.
Yes, the scavenger hunt. And gathering all of this to point you in the direction of like, here's where I think I'm going. And an important piece that I think we sometimes miss out in this is what's true for us. I call it, it's a very old-fashioned term, but I have yet to find a better word for it. Our own constitution. So
Yes.
our constitute of what, like, what works well for me? Am I a
Yes.
morning person? Am I an evening person? How does my energy flow through the week? What kind of sleep patterns do I need? All these things, like you
Yes.
said, that are very unique to each and every one. Balance is absolutely going to look different to each and every
Yeah.
single one of us. And it's getting honest with ourselves around, who am I? What is my natural constitution? What brings me joy? When I start to go inward and think about that, and then, am I going to continue to listen to those clues? Am I willing to move past that fear and some of that doubt to undo that conditioning that led to that to-do list, that
Yes.
or that list where we're checking the boxes that isn't our list at all?
Yeah, I love it. I just get this vision of like your own unique fingerprint, right? Of
Yeah.
authenticity, like your authentic fingerprint of, what works for you, right? Not good or bad, no judgments,
Yeah.
right? It's just what works for you in order for you to be at your highest, your best, your most fulfilled, right? Beautiful. So now we come to the practical, right? What? So I'm watching you today and I'm listening to what Stephanie's saying, and it all resonates. This is amazing. So I'm not being selfish, wanting this, right?
Mhm.
And it's possible, right? Because in your book, I mean, you have honestly, this is amazing. The big scale back. You have worksheets in here. You have like chapters on like limiting beliefs, leadership. It's like a blueprint of your freedom. Like literally, it's a blueprint, and I so appreciate you taking the time, because it's no small feat to write a book, and one that really speaks to your experience, and then you're going out into the world and sharing it. That is supreme leadership. So what would you like, what practical tools, steps, practices you could share with our audience today
Yeah.
that they could start implementing right now?
Yeah. And I gave a bit of a spoiler in the last answer about this idea of constitution and
Yes.
really getting to know yourself at a really deep level. So part of, and you'll know this from reading the book, it's part memoir. So it's part personal story and it's part
Yes.
framework. And I did that not because I think people are like, yay, I can't wait to learn more about Stephanie. That's not why I did it. Nor do I think my path will be like anybody else's path, or that people should do what I did. I did it because so often we can read these books, we can get a framework and think, oh, that framework, that theory, wow,
Yes.
that sounds great. And then we go to implement it. And it turns out we're these humans.
Deer in headlights, you're like,
Yeah, that's
seemed
exactly
like a
right.
good idea at the time.
The theory seems great. And now that I'm out here in the world trying to do
It's
this,
like, who's this for?
right, we mess it up. And you'll
Yeah.
see that in the book. You'll see the good, the bad, the not so good, the challenges, where I had times where I was completely, I think people reading it would be like, geez, Stephanie, like, is it not obvious that you should stop doing
Pull it
this
together.
and start doing this? But I think we can all relate to that of, it was the fear and the doubt of, can I really change the way I approach work? Can I change
Yes.
my relationship with work? Is that okay? Because I wasn't getting support from it. Not everybody, like you said, it's going to look different for everyone.
Yes.
And there were a lot of people in my life in that corporate world who were saying it needs to look this way, or
Yes.
society in general. This is what good looks like. And I've realized now, the more I have tuned inward to my own inner compass, and this would be the practical tool, really getting to know yourself and being honest about that, so that you're not getting to a point where you're backed into a corner, putting on a costume every day to show up for life, where it feels taxing simply to go in and do whatever it is you've signed up to do, whatever the job is, whatever the rules are that you're holding in life right now. If it feels like a slog, there's probably something you need to explore. Where am I off center?
Yes.
What is not working for my constitution here?
Yes.
Where are my values out of alignment? So my practical advice is to become a detective in yourself. So start to gather all the clues. Notice for yourself, like you're your own science experiment. So detective or science experiment, whichever one you want to choose to
Yes.
use, and start to gather that information. What am I noticing about myself in different environments with different people? And again, You don't need to attach judgment. It's just objective truth. Like this actually drains.
Would you recommend people like writing these down, like journaling about this, taking
I
notes like a
do.
detective,
I
right?
do
You're
actually
gathering
have, yeah.
clues.
I have paper and
Yeah.
pen. I realize that's a bit outdated. So people, you can voice note it. I know there's Evernote. I think I don't use a lot of online apps. I'm more of a paper and pencil kind of person, but you can, any technique that works for you to capture it in as close to real time as possible. So to even
Yes.
do this daily and to say to yourself, this is draining me of energy. This is giving me energy. When I'm in this environment, that's working really well for me. Oh, even when it comes to foods, but just starting to gather so you can get this information to help set yourself up for success. Because too
Yes.
often, I think we ignore a lot of the warning signs that our bodies are giving us. We ignore those little red flags of, oh, this work environment isn't feeling very good to me right now. And next
Yeah.
thing we know, we can end up in crisis where it's suddenly so depleting and so draining. We're burnt out. And then the last thing we want to do is start doing self-reflection work to figure out what's next because
Now,
we're so exhausted.
this is, what's popping up for me. And I'm just wondering, just curious,
Yeah.
what was it for you? Because in terms of like a worthiness conversation, at what
Mm,
point in time, what was that? Was there a pivotal moment? Was it a series of moments? Like, how did you get to a point where you thought enough is enough
mm.
and that I am worthy? Because it's one thing to know you don't want something, but at what point in time, and what did that look like for you to say, you know what, I am worth putting my time, attention, investment of energy in my transformation.
Mm.
And I'm just going to go for it, right? Without like still hearing the voices, the naysayers, societal expectations, all of that, yet choosing boldly to transcend that and go for it anyway. And from what you're describing, do it messy, right? Like not being, clipped or stopped or, dissuaded
No.
um by the optics. Like at what point in time did you just like tap into that and make that decision? Because it's a decision you made, whether it's subconsciously or consciously, to just like level up and go all in for yourself. You said yes to yourself. When did you say yes to yourself? What did that look like?
Oh, well, listeners are going to realize that we did not pre-plan this question because I feel myself getting emotional even in you asking it because it hits home. It gets me
Mm.
right in the feels, right? It gets right in the feels, right in the heart here. Because I was always, through my whole life, really attracted to powerful female, bold, that word that you used, bold.
Yes.
I loved to read memoirs. I loved to read about leadership. I loved bold women. I think there was part of me that wanted to be bold. And so this is the part where I'll get honest. I wish there was a point where I woke up and thought, yeah, I'm worthy and I'm going to go and do this. Mine looked a little backwards, or maybe others have had this happen. So I was dipping my toe. So I was reading about boldness. I was
Yes.
intrigued by boldness.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say I was longing it inside. I was craving it, longing it, seeking it out, reading a lot about it, and then dipping my toe in, doing little things, but not getting really honest with myself um until I had some real health issues where I had really got myself to a point where I couldn't ignore the misalignment in my life
Yes.
anymore. Like it became, and I look back and in hindsight, gosh, there were so many signs. There were so many signs and so many opportunities. I had myself so stuck in, I don't know that it's possible. Can I make this change? That
Yeah.
worthiness piece. So it took a big cost. And then I thought, okay, I'm not willing to put up with this anymore. And
Mm-hmm.
so that had me start to invest. And I think as I started to do that, the worthiness started to build. I started to notice, hey, wait a minute. Now that I've got alignment in my values, now that I'm honoring what my body needs, I'm showing up better.
Mm.
So the
It's
outcomes,
working.
the outcomes came before I felt worthy. And I don't know whether that's a good news story or not, but it was like I started to notice, hey, wait, I feel better and I'm actually doing better. So I'm showing up better for my clients. I'm
Yes.
showing up better for the world and around me. I have more energy and my mind is clearer. I've got greater clarity. I noticed myself feeling more confident because I was starting to engage in things that really aligned with who I was. And so that then led me to get to a place of confidence. So I say this because, and again, like I said in the book, I share a lot of my own messiness as I was going through this process,
Yes.
because I think to pretend for any, like for some people, it might look one way. If you're like me, it might look a little messier. And you may not have that moment where you think, wow, I've woken up today and I feel really ready to take on the world. It might look different. And we can enter in at so many different places. And I think the point is that we show up for ourselves. If you can just say to yourself, you know what? I may not know what the answers are. I may not know what like it looks like a year from now, 10 years from now, but I'm willing to show up for myself and I'm willing to try. I think the right teachers, the
Beautiful.
right resources, everything's going to show up that you need.
Amazing. No, that is, there's no, again, there's no one size fits all. There's no like template of this is exactly how it looks. And I love what you're sharing, because many of us, I mean, I'll speak for myself, you know, it's not backwards. Like we come at it from all kinds of angles, and you talk about dipping your toe. That is what it can look like, right? It's even what may seem like going all in for one person might look like dipping a toe in, but you were curious, you were open to exploring the detective
Yeah.
analogy you used, right? So it's the same thing where then you gathered evidence. This is what I'm hearing. You gathered enough evidence where now you had proof, because our
Yeah.
subconscious minds need proof in
Mhm.
order to create a new precedence for what is possible. Then you started, getting bolder, right? You started believing maybe there is something here, right? And so just leaning into that. And that is so encouraging and just incredible. And you continued.
Yeah, it's
You
like
continued.
move in that direction. Be that detective, collect the evidence if you need to. I needed some evidence. Some people don't need the evidence. I did. And it sounds to me like you resonate with that you probably had clients and people in your life
Yeah,
who have
yeah.
also needed that evidence. And then just start moving in the direction. Again, we don't need to, depending on where we are on that risk tolerance, some
Yes.
people really ready to blow it all up and step into something different. Others a little more hesitant. And that doesn't matter. I actually don't think it matters where you fall on that risk scale,
Yes.
because again, like we've been saying, it can look different for everybody. So you might be someone that's ready to jump in. That can work really well for you. But if you're someone who is a little more hesitant, don't worry. You can gently move in the direction of where your inner compass is pointing you,
Yes.
and
Give
do it
yourself
at your own
permission
pace.
and grace.
Yeah.
Grace, be gentle
Yeah.
with yourself and create those margins
Yeah.
for
And
yourself
hey,
to
and hey, if you like to just jump in, do that, like that too.
do what
That too could
works.
work. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, clearly the big scale back is working beautifully for you.
Oh,
And please let our audience know where they can find you. It's this information also is going to be uploaded on the website. You'll know exactly where to find Stephanie, how to get the book, the big scale back. Is there where can we find you? So share in the video, and also any final words you'd like to share with our audience.
terrific. And I've got a special secret link just for this audience that I'm going to send through to you, Rachel, that you can put in the show notes. It's only for Supreme Leadership Summit, nobody else. So it's its own unique link. So you will be having that,
Beautiful.
and it'll give
Thank
you a
you. Are you
yeah,
hearing this? Only here. Wonderful.
sneak peek of 2 different worksheets. So you'll have worksheets if you want to look at those worksheets from today. So I'll be sending that through at Agency to Change. That is where I am on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. It's just my name, Stephanie Woodward, but those are the 3 spaces that I'm on the most. I do have a TikTok account. You might find me there, but I'm not on there very often. So LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram,
That's where she
Agency to
does all her
Change.
breakdancing on
Yeah,
TikTok.
I wish. I wish I could be a break dancer, Rachel. I really do. I don't have those moves, but maybe one day.
One day.
That might be, you know what? Now you've planted a seed. Now I want to make a breakdancing TikTok video. So that's where you can find me. And also stephaniewoodward.com, which is more about the book, or agencytochange.com, which is more of the business side, depending on where you want to go and what you want to learn.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much. This has been enlightening and, for me, just inspiring. So Thank you so much for being one of our supreme leaders on this summit, and I look forward to many more conversations with you. Thank you,
Thanks so much,
everyone.
Rachel.
You're very welcome. Bye for now.